Gary? We're all okay? We're all connected?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay,
I'm good. I hear George. Thank you.
Okay. Very well. Yeah. Michelle, last weekend, huh?
Say that again, George?
Michelle did very well last weekend.
Yeah. Wow, she keeps saying it's the horse. I think it's both of them, George.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Michelle's got
The horse.
years of experience there. But if there's anybody from the public wishes to committee now, do so, and I don't think there's any in a public, so we'll move on. And Matt, we're going to turn it over to you to start going through the agenda items.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you, George. This is Matt. In the office here, we also have Tom Barnes, Pam Clark.
Hey, George.
And we also have Jordan Ray from the Water Quality Lab Manager here tonight, or this afternoon. So.
Okay, well, welcome everybody.
All right, we'll jump right into it. The first item on the agenda this afternoon is to review a recommendation for the AV Edge sponsorship. So you probably recall about a month or so ago, we had a presentation from the AV Edge representative. That was Drew Murphy, that came to the board meeting and gave a high-level overview of what AV Edge does and provides to the Valley. But on the screen here, we got a few bullets to give a little background to AV Edge. Stands for Antelope Valley Economic Development and Growth Enterprise. It's a public-private partnership that facilitates growth in the Antelope Valley region and provides a legislative voice for its members. AV Edge formed when Antelope Valley Board of Trade and Gavia merged back in March of 2020. So those two agencies no longer exist. They were formed together, and that's what we have now is the AV Edge that kind of handles both of those things in the past that were handled by the Board of Trade and Gavia. In the past, AVAC was a member of both Gavia and Board of Trade, and we continued our membership through the AV Edge after the merger. So in our current budget, we allocated $5,000 for the AV Edge sponsorship, as well as the Outlook Conference sponsorship. To date, we've been invoiced from the AV Edge for about half of that amount, $2,500. They have not invoiced us yet for the Outlook Conference sponsorship, but my understanding is they're working on that, and we should be receiving a packet of the upcoming Outlook Conference that's going to be later this year. So any questions on that?
You know, we have a history. Oh, go ahead, excuse me.
Oh, no, go ahead, George.
I just said we have a long history, and Keith, I know you remember it wasn't the Board of Trade. I think we remember that, but we contributed a sizable amount for a number of years when Vern Lott manager, and they did a lot to promote the valley and water conservation, and that we were kind of active in also the Board of Trade. So, I think that $5,000 would be, as far as I would think that would be very good. I don't know that. But what do the other committee members say?
I agree with you, George, but I think right now they are only asking for about $2,500.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, George. I'm okay with $2,500 or $5,000.
Yeah. So just to clarify, our budget is $5,000. That makes up $2,500 for the membership and another $2,500 to sponsor the Outlook Conference. So our contribution towards AV Edge is recommended to be $5,000.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
That's fine with me. Gary, is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay with me, George.
Okay.
So I think we're committee's on board.
Great. So we'll work on the membership list. That's being presented to the Finance Committee next week. And so we'll plug in $5,000 for the sponsorship. So I'm sure they'll be pleased that we're continuing our sponsorship, and we'll go from there. All right. So the next item is to review and recommendation on special district LAFCO representatives. So a little background, every once in a while we receive these ballots from LAFCO, or representing special districts, and they're in search of nomination or voting. It's actual ballot, right? It's a ballot for voting member and alternate member. So as you know, AVAC being a special district, we have a vote for who represents this region on LAFCO. And based on our policy, we have an option of submitting a vote for one candidate or each of the two positions, or can forego voting on the election altogether. The ballot must be received by April 22nd of this year. So as I mentioned, they're looking for 2 votes from AVAC, one for the voting member and one for the alternate member. So for the voting members, there's 3 candidates. They're listed on the screen there. The first one is a gentleman that is president or past president for LA County Vector Control. His name is Stephen Appleton. Next gentleman is Jerry Gladback, who you all may remember over the years. He's been very involved with Aqua and Aqua JPIA. He's also a director and the past president for Santa Clarita Valley Water District. The third lady is Sharon, I can't even pronounce that last name, but she is a director and past president of the Crescenta Valley Water District over the hill in San Gabriel Valley. So we kind of leave it up to the committee members and directors, but in the past they kind of asked for a staff recommendation on this. And, I would recommend Jerry Gladback, being someone who's been involved with Aqua and JPIA and is a somewhat local water agency director just over the hill in Santa Clarita Valley. And he's been pretty involved in the past. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on that.
Yes, I remember the name Jerry Gladback. We supported him in the past.
That's correct.
Man, is he rerunning, or is this a new position for him then, or?
He is the incumbent, so he's seeking re-election.
Okay, so he's already in the position, or just reappointing him. So already we've cleared him, put him in that position before?
Yeah, in the past, and he's done a good job representing our region.
Okay, I'm okay with that, George. Are you okay with it?
Yeah, let's go with it. The committee's okay with it, so that's great.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Sounds good. And then moving on to alternate member, we have 2 candidates. We have the incumbent, who is Melvin Matthews. He's a GM and past president of a small irrigation district in Foothill Municipal Water District, I guess, or maybe a separate district. And then the second person is director and past president of LA County Vector Control District. So my staff's recommendation is to go with the incumbent, Melvin Matthews, being that he's involved with water agency. And the other individual we really don't know, and She represents a vector control district. So that's our recommendation.
Yeah, I would go with the incumbent.
Yeah.
Okay, Gary, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. If you're okay with it, George and Keith both, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, we're okay. It's kind of hard to don't impersonate, but that sounds fine based upon they're incumbents and hopefully they've done a good job.
Yeah.
And that staff recommends that. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
And it sounds like we have a committee consensus, so what we'll do is we'll put this on the agenda for next Tuesday under the consent calendar with what our staff and committee's recommendation is.
That's fine with me.
Great.
Sounds good.
All right, moving on to our next item. We put together a press release to put out to the press and the public to announce the grant award that the agency received for the SNP Phase 2 project. So several months ago, DWR came out with a grant opportunity that we thought was a good fit for our SNP Phase 2 project, and we submitted an application, and we were fortunate enough to receive a recommendation for grant funds from DWR, and the amount is for $5 million. Dwayne, I think, reported this at the board meeting a couple weeks back, and we thought it'd be a good idea to put a press release out notifying the media because we have received a few questions about the grant award. So, maybe Pam, could you pull up the actual press release?
Who were the questions from?
It was from Allison Gatlin from the AV Press.
Okay.
Yeah. So we put this press release together, just talked about the award from DWR. We give a little description of what the project entails. It's construction of a 48-inch diameter pipeline. Length is about 6.5 miles to move water from the West Side Water Bank to the Quartzville Water Treatment Plant. And then we also talk about who will benefit from the project. We did include a quote from Director Sourceable because if you recall, over the last several years, she's really been a big proponent of looking for grant opportunities for this project, and she's kind of been the one out in front of going to meet with the state and federal legislators. So we thought it'd be appropriate to have a quote from Shelley, and she did review this quote, and she was in agreement with it and agreed with it. So we wanted to run this by the committee and see if you thought it was appropriate to present this to the board and put it on our website and get it out to the press. It's kind of a good story for the agency.
I would see what the committee is thinking, but I would like to hold off on this and just give that a little more thought before we recommended it to the board. And Keith and Gary, what are your thoughts?
No, there's no hurry, no urgency at all, so we can wait.
You don't mind? That's just,
Yeah.
We'll bring that up a little different time and try to just give it a little more thought. And maybe in the meantime, you could in that article you could send it to Gary and Keith and myself for that.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Like you said, there's no hurry on getting this out. We'll send the draft around to the committee members, have you spend some time looking at it and thinking about it, and then we can meet again.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Next item is review and recommendation on a statement on statewide project allocation and the Forest Snow Survey of the Year. So we call this statement rather than a press release because we don't plan on putting this out to the public or on the website. It's more of a statement if we get asked questions about the State Water Project allocation and water supply situation. We did get one inquiry from same gal, Allison Gatlin from AV Press. She never got back to us. We had her. We weren't in the office at the time, so we had asked she'd call back later. But we thought it'd be appropriate to have this statement available, like I said, rather than a press release. So the statement is, you want to pull that up, Pam? So it gives a little introduction about the drought being a third consecutive year of a dry situation. Talks about the April 1st snow survey, how it's below average, and then scroll down a little bit more. And it talks a little bit about the water allocation that AVAC is getting in addition to the 5%. We've talked about the health and safety supply that we're anticipating from the state of DWR. What else?
We have that ready to and that's, to me, that sounds reasonable. We're not going to release it, but if that's if we're requested, somebody has that. Barry, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with you, George. I think you're spot on with that.
Keith?
Yes, it'd be good to have it ready so that we could express the message that we want the public to hear ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just have in our back pocket if we get questions about the situation. Like I said, we aren't going to be out in front of this and put this on the website or send it out to the media. All right. Sounds like we have a consensus on that.
I believe so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. All right. The next item is update on drought conservation messaging and outreach. So Tom Barnes is here because he's attended the local roundtable discussions with the retail water agencies last week, I think it was. Yeah. So take it away, Tom.
All right. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Tom.
Good to see you, or hear you. This is just an update to the drought conservation messaging for the Antelope Valley. This has been seen by the committee in the past, but I wanted to update you on some of the past results we've had from the messaging and some future proposed ideas. If you recall, the goal of this group was to share thoughts and develop some of the ideas for a coordinated valley-wide drought conservation messaging for 2022. This is kind of a renewed effort from past attempts to keep everybody on the same message as we move forward. And as you just saw, with the other message, we are in a very dire situation now with the drought. And so what AVEC has done is we've participated in the meetings with this list of water providers here. We're not heading this up. We're just supporting the retailers. We're really trying to help the retailers to pursue their own individual water conservation efforts. And so we've been attending the meetings to keep that coordinated. So the water providers participating are AVEC and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District, LA County Water Works, Palm Water District is hosting the meetings, and Porto Water District and Roseman CSD are also attending the meeting.
Tom, is that meeting open to the public?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
we could let you know if you were interested, or if someone else is interested, they could certainly sit in the meetings. Generally, we just have about 6, maybe 7 folks there, 1 to 2 representatives from each of the water providers.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
As a review of some of the things we've done in the past for conservation messaging, last year we looked at proposed digital billboard advertising. We did run that digital ad at 2 locations in Palmdale near the mall of the 14th Freeway. Avek at the time supported that messaging with the $3,000 approved. Now it went to the board and was approved by the board to run that digital ad. What's being proposed now at this latest meeting last week, we talked about a video contest for drought messaging. And the idea was that we would step it up and use social media, as very common, of course, now, as a way to reach a wider audience. But not just send out notices over social media, but to ask the public to submit short online videos that relate to promoting water conservation. And the concept was discussed further, and we went into details of how we could have viewers, vote on these submitted videos, and then they would be, judged based on the amount of likes that they get on the video to determine who the winners were. And then the financial side of it would be the group could provide prizes of some fashion, either cash rewards or some type of reward for the best liked video. That's the concept that's on the table right now that we're looking at. We're still doing a lot of research on how that exactly will work out.
Where did that idea from, Tom?
Specifically, I'm not sure. I think as a group, like say about 7 or 8 of us there, I think it was brought up. The main goal of this was to be able to use the social media platforms to promote this in a much wider platform than we could with that digital billboard. And so I'm not sure exactly who brought it up, which agency.
Did it come from Palmdale Waters?
It is hosted at Palmdale Water, and Palmdale Water is part of that.
Oh, sounds like a big work project to me. But what is Keith and Gary? What do you guys think of it?
Well, this is the first I think I've heard of it, so I don't have any firm opinion at the moment.
Gary, what's your thought?
Well, my thought is I don't know enough about it, George. I think like Keith said, I think maybe we get a little more briefing on it. And what's your guys' position on it, Tom and Matt? What's your guys' thoughts?
As Tom mentioned, I think it's good for AVAC to attend these meetings, but I think AVAC should really take a backseat role with this conservation messaging, and it needs to be driven and coordinated by the retail agencies, because they're the ones that deal directly with the end user, the businesses and the residents. I don't think AVAC should have a place in that, but I think it's good for us to attend the meetings and provide support for the Valley's retail agencies.
If the committee agrees, they would just put this on the back burner and discuss it at our next meeting. We have a little, since this is brand new for everybody, have a little time to think about it. And maybe by the next meeting, maybe we'll be meeting in person. But I can see a person can do a heck of a lot of work for very little return. I mean, I'm not sure how many people are going to go to the effort to do what's requested. I mean, I don't think it's going to be hundreds. It might be a few dozen, might be half a dozen. So, and like you said, we're a wholesale, not a retail. So, if the committee agrees, we'll just put this on hold and look at it on a later date.
I agree, George. I don't think we ought to make a decision right now.
Yeah, we're not asking for or seeking any funds or commitment of any kind. So I think you guys are spot on by recommending that we just hold off for now and see where it goes.
Gary, does that sound okay?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, George.
Okay, very well.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
The next item is to review and recommendation on release of the agency's annual report. So Pam did a lot of work on putting together this annual report, and she's got a couple slides here. I'll let her go through that. If you would, Pam.
Oh, sure. Good evening, committee members. So the 2021 annual report is kind of a comprehensive summary of different departments, different highlights of what departments completed throughout the year, and then overall what the agency achieved. So we've been putting this report out since 2018. So this will be the third one that we published, and it's just kind of a chronological record of things that the agency's accomplished, along with all the data. And so if it was approved, we would be sharing an electronic copy of the report on our website, and it is something that we approved as an action item in our 2020 Strategic Communications Plan. And then I'll go ahead and pull up the report so you can take a look.
And just to clarify, we know this is the first you've seen this, so we're not asking for approval today. We want to introduce the report to the committee, and then we'll send it out to you folks after the meeting today, have you go through it, and then we'd have a subsequent meeting before we recommend approval.
Sounds good.
So Pam can go through it here in general.
Yeah, we can just go through some of the sections. Like last year, we have just a general message from the GM. And it talks a little bit about the background and formation of Avek, as well as our service area and some of the different customers we serve and our facilities. And then scrolling a little slow here. Going through the various departments, we have our finance department talks a little bit about our bond rating and maintaining a balanced budget. And then we also share our water sales and deliveries, total water sales for the year, and then our different revenue sources, our property tax revenue, and then our operating costs. Property tax summary, broken out with the different counties for LA and Kern County. And then we also share our independent auditor's report. And of course, there was no findings in the audit, so that's good news. And all our financial statements. And then moving on to go ahead.
No, nothing.
And moving on to engineering, we talk about some of our major projects like the High Desert Water Bank, different construction and design projects. And then we have a section on our SNP Phase 2 project where we're at with that. And it kind of goes into planning. Kind of one of the highlights there is our local hazard mitigation plan that we've been working on completing this last year. The next section is operations. We talk about our water treatment and production, our total production for the year. And we break that out by the different plants. And then we have some of our production costs broken out so you can get a better idea of cost per acre foot for chemicals, some of our personnel costs. And then also some highlights for the maintenance department and everything that was completed in that department throughout the year. And then water resources. Go ahead.
So if this was in pages, how many pages would it be?
I think it's 46 pages.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And we talk a little bit about our water supply and water banking and our water deliveries. We'll send all this out so you can review the data a little more in detail. But we talk about our supply and demand reporting, our groundwater production. And then all the services are lab provided, different data on the number of tests that were completed, and all our different lab customers, along with our water quality findings. And then human resources, we just touch on the different types of training and safety that staff had, some of the different benefits throughout the year, money that we saved on some of our insurance benefits, and different awards the agency got for insurance having low ratios of claims. And we touch on the compensation study that was completed and our COVID-19 protocols. And then administration is a little more general. We just talk about our involvement with state water contractors, advocacy groups, AV state water contractors, and then a little bit about the board's activities. We talked about having all of our meetings remote throughout the year, how many meetings we completed. And then it touches on communications with some of the different events we've had and different outreach we've done for our projects to local legislators. And that's about the gist of it, if you have any questions.
So again, now that's going to be sent out then?
Yeah, we'll send this out today. We just want to take this time this afternoon to introduce it. Like Pam said, we've done the last several years. Something Dwayne has really pushed for and advocated for, putting this annual report together. And we'll get it out to the committee and have you take a look at it more in depth, and then talk about more at our next meeting.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have to maybe see what works for the committee members, but maybe again in the next 3 or 4 weeks, maybe first part of May.
Yep.
Yeah, probably so.
I'm okay with that. Hey, George and Matt, is okay if Gary cuts out? I've got to go to a prayer meeting at 5:30.
No, we'll talk to you about later, Gary.
No problem. Take care, Gary. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
We're good, Gary.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. Then moving on, our next item is review and recommendation on release of our annual water quality report for both LA and Kern counties. So Jordan Ray, our lab manager, is here this afternoon to walk through a few slides and hit the highlights.
Committee members, I'll go ahead and start with some background on the requirements. The 1996 Safe Drinking Water Act amendments mandated that drinking water providers prepare and distribute a consumer confidence report. And then this rule took effect in 1998. So since we're a wholesaler, we don't have to prepare a full CCR like most retail water suppliers. Those are more in-depth. They have more material for their customers, such as multiple languages and historical data. Public water systems must prepare and distribute their CCRs by July 1st. And since they include some of our data in their report, we like to get these completed early so they have plenty of time to meet their deadlines. So we have to prepare 2 separate annual water quality reports. We do one for Kern County and one for LA County. Then once the reports are completed, we either email them or hard copy mail them to our customers. And then we're required to complete a certification form stating that good faith efforts were taken to deliver the report. And then we also make these reports available on our website. They can be found under the Your Water tab and then Water Quality. And then the last step, we have to upload them to the State Water Resources Control Board Drink portal. So moving on to the water quality results. In 2021, we had no coliform treatment technique triggers or E. coli MCL violations in our back-to-you samples from the distribution system. 100% of monthly samples met EPA turbidity performance standards, and we also satisfied the EPA groundwater rule for minimum chlorine residual leaving the clear well, and that applies to our water banks. And we met all state and federal requirements for VOCs, SOCs, radiologicals, and inorganic contaminants. Next, we have tables for our current and LA disinfection residual precursors and treatment byproducts. So all our results fall well under the limits set by the state. The chlorine MCL is 10 ppm, and you can see the averages for both counties were just above 1 ppm. Also, bromate, which is a disinfection byproduct, has a highest running annual average of 0.82, and the MCL is 10 ppb. Right. So lastly, we have a graph of our THM. Operations did a really good job last year keeping them low. Internally, Avek sets a goal of 64 ppb, and that provides their customers with a minimum of a 20% buffer. So the highest running annual average at any given site throughout the year was 50 micrograms per liter. And then we finished the year with maximum running annual averages of 20 micrograms per liter in our Kern County system, and then 41 micrograms per liter in our LA County system. So that concludes my report. I'll take any questions.
Good job, and this is a state requirement, so we're following out of what needed to be done. So it sounds like you've done a very good job. We all appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah, both lab staff and operations staff did an excellent job this last year. So our plan is to have Jordan give this brief presentation to the full board on Tuesday, just so we can formally accept and file the annual quality report.
Could I ask a question on the previous slide?
Yes.
In the little legend at the bottom, we list 110th and 165th. Are those west or east?
East. They're
part of
an east side claim.
Part of the east side system. From the east side one.
What about the first one, 5th and M?
That's that's served off the Quartz Hill system from the Quartz Hill plant. That's the furthest turnout we have on that system.
And is that 5th Street West?
That's 5th Street East.
Okay.
No, that's 5th Street West. You're right. Yeah, 5th Street West.
Could we make this a little clearer and indicate which streets we're talking about, east and west?
Yeah, in the actual report, which will be in the board packet, it has the reports that we send to the health department, and I believe they have locations on there. I'm not sure exactly what they say, but it's what the health department refers to them as. Yeah. But I can definitely add east and west
to the presentation.
Good point, Keith. Good point.
Okay, I have no more questions. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. All right, the next item is discussion on restocking AVAC's promotional items. I think this was triggered by recommendation by you, George, on, yes. I think the question was about some AVAC hats. Maybe you saw some of those hats or you have one and thought they were a good idea.
Yeah, I know it's been some time ago, but I haven't seen any in recent times. Maybe there are, but just something, if the committee agrees with it, we might try to restock to a reasonable number and give one out to each employee and have them for a few promotional purposes, not 100, but maybe 100, 150 caps, and just see what the committee thinks about that. And that, Keith, so I think that's okay.
Yes, definitely. We've always been prepared for various outreach events in the past, and I think we should continue to be prepared for those.
And just maybe from a budget standpoint, our current budget for what we call public information budget is $45,000, and to date we've spent about $18,000. Most of that has been for Alicia's time and effort for her contract. So we currently have about $27,000 remaining. And the hats that we purchased last year, or maybe it was earlier this year, for the employees, that was about $1,700. You know, if the committee would like, there's plenty of money in the budget to kind of restock on promotional items for the agency. I don't think we need to go through the full board on this. It's within the GM's spending authority, and we have, like I said, we have plenty of budget.
Okay. That sounds good to me if Keith agrees with it.
Yes, I do. That sounds good, Matt.
Okay, great. Thanks for bringing that up, George. And then our last item today is to talk about continuing the teleconference meetings. So we got a few slides that just summarize kind of where we are with the governor's order. So first bullet there, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the governor declared a state of emergency back in March of 2020. And he issued a series of executive orders that suspended certain requirements from the Brown Act, allowing public agencies like ourselves to hold virtual meetings where directors could call into meetings and not have to post their location or offer their location up for public access. You know, one of the things with the Brown Act is, as you well know, that if you are going to call in remotely, say from a hotel or your home, that you have to list that location on the agenda and offer your location if somebody from the public wanted to show up at your location and participate in the meeting. So all those requirements were suspended due to the COVID-19. And then late last year, in September, the governor signed an Assembly Bill 361, which added a requirement that you can adopt a resolution every month as a governing board, like AVAX, to continue with holding the meetings virtual. And this Assembly Bill is good through January 1st of 2024. So another year and 8 months or so. Now, within that Assembly Bill, there is a requirement that the agency must determine that meetings in person would present risk to the health and safety of the attendees. So that's what we're basically saying when we adopt the resolution each month by our board. Is saying that we've got this health risk, and we've been basically piggybacking on the LA County Health Department requirement. So is there another slide, Dan? Yeah, so in summary, as I said, the AVAC board votes on this resolution every month to comply with the Assembly Bill. And a request was made for discussion at the committee level on this item and to discuss whether we want to continue holding virtual meetings or get back to more in-person meetings.
Keith or Matt, could you poll, or somebody may have, poll the different agencies in the Antelope Valley, public agencies, the city councils, water districts, and Roseman, Quartz Hill, and such as that, and just see what's happening, what's legally required and what's practically required. But Palmdale City Council, Lancaster City Council, and school boards and like that. If you could do that, what do you think about that, Keith?
I think it's a great idea, and also I'd like to get a little input from our attorney.
Yeah. As far as the polling, we can easily do that. I think you rattled off a pretty good list there, George. We can reach out to the two cities, the water districts, and school boards, and see what their current practice is for virtual meetings or in-person meetings. Because personally, I don't think we want to be the Lone Ranger out there as being the only public agency doing remote meetings. We probably want to be pretty consistent with what others are doing. And as far as the legal input, Keith, are you thinking just to make sure we're staying in compliance with the Assembly bill?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll get Jim Markman's input on that. But our read of the Assembly bill is that we are in compliance as long as we continue to adopt the resolution on a monthly basis. But we'll confirm that with him.
You could even go out of that valley a little bit, into Santa Clarita and in Mojave. They have a board, there that what is it, Keith? It's for the Mojave Airport right there. And so just get a good representation and just see what's happening now and what's contemplated.
Yeah.
Good idea, George.
Okay. And is the wish here to meet again as a committee once we get those results in?
Maybe we could. Let's make sure that we have Gary available at that next meeting too.
Yeah. Okay. No good point. Yeah, we got about 3 things I think to talk about. So if we could do it, maybe when do you think? First part of May or before that? Keith? First part of May, is that okay, Keith?
Sure. Early May is fine with me.
Okay. Yeah, we could even do something sooner if you wanted. But
okay. Well, we'll keep. Yeah, as long as it works out for Keith, Gary, and myself, it'll be fine. If the staff, has available.
So that's all we had. But maybe if I could just summarize kind of which items we're going to bring back and which ones are going to go on to the board meeting next week, just so we're all on the same page. We talked about the AV Edge sponsorship. We're just going to continue to recommend $5,000 per year on that. The 2 press releases, on the LASCO representative, that will be on the agenda Tuesday night under the consent calendar with our recommendation and a staff report. The press release for the SNP Phase 2 funding, we're going to send that draft out to the committee members, and we're going to meet again later this month, early next month on it. Sounds like the committee was good with the statement on the State Water Project allocation, so we're going to put that on the consent calendar for the agenda on Tuesday. The annual report, we're going to send that out to committee members for review. Talk that through some more at the next meeting with the committee. Jordan is going to give a presentation on Tuesday regarding the annual water quality report. And on the teleconference meetings, we're going to do our homework with legal and do some surveys with what other agencies are doing and bringing that back next month. Sound good?
Sounds good. Does it sound like we're on track there, Keith?
Yes, it sounds exactly like what we concluded for each item. Thank you, Matt.
Yep. All right. Sounds like we have a plan. That was we covered a lot. That was pretty efficient. So
we'll good. We'll try to have these meetings maybe a little more often. It's been a while, so we'll try to maybe every month or two. We'll try to touch base so we just keep up with things. So that sounds good.
Yeah, I think we're going to try to pick a date every month that works for this committee and have more of a standing committee agenda, so we can meet, like you said, George, on a regular basis. So we're not letting 2 or 3 months go by.
Yeah, no, it sounds reasonable. Sounds good. Okay, well, I guess that brings us to the end of the committee. Is it nothing further, Keith, or
nothing for me, thank you.
Okay, so we'll just see everybody or talk to everybody Tuesday.
Yep.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, good night. Thank you.
Goodbye.